till it dies. If my phone dies, that's okay. Alright. Okay, bitch, we're doing this again. Hi, I'm Djérae, and this is Retro Reflections, a weekly video essay series by the Underground Rainbow Experiment, illuminating how we create ourselves, our belonging, and our freedom. Okay, we made it to the last part of the slogan. Thank God we can move on to other things, you may be saying, or not. But we create our freedom. But what does it mean to create one's freedom? I think for me, for a long time, I was very much under the impression that to create freedom for oneself was to be without order, right? But truly what it is, it's one's own sense of order is what it means to be free. It's order that is aligned with your needs, your responsibilities, your commitments, your wants, desires, and your pathway to your highest and greatest good, all those amazing things. Versus being aligned to someone else's greatest good, way of being, commitments, etc., 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 etc. Now, when we're talking about being in community, this is important because, as we talked about last week, to be in community does not mean to be a monolith. To be in community does not mean to lean into groupthink. Actually, community is built on groupthink. I was gonna say cults, but I don't even want to do cults like that. You know why? You get political parties. Let me flip that shit. I think political parties as they stand today are actually beautiful examples of groupthink. Why? Because, especially, let me be more specific. I think the Democratic Party, let's get into it, is a very good example of groupthink. Why? Because when it comes to ethical tenets, there are some non-negotiables that Democrats have. And I also feel that were the Democratic Party more open to what they call extremes, but many day-to-day people call common sense, which they also see as quote-unquote leftist views, you know, just views like people should get paid adequately for their work. Everyone should be able to use the bathroom in any state they like without getting ticketed. All of these things that we believe are basic human rights, some of us, I don't know, day-to-day out on the street, at least in my community, right? It's just common sense that we should be able to work and make a living wage. It's common sense that we should be able to go to the restroom where we like. It's common sense that everyone should have health insurance. It's common sense that we should be able to go to the doctor and afford care and treatment, right? The issue is when you get into spaces of groupthink in which people are willing to compromise their values in a way that is, I believe, for the sake of going along to get along. You then create a space, a party, a group of people who are lukewarm. I don't know what you've ever cooked in lukewarm water, but it doesn't fucking work. And here's why. Heat is a catalyst. Heat gets things going. Friction creates change. When we're looking at chemical compounds, you have to add certain catalysts, right, to certain elements to get certain results, right? So when we're thinking about a political landscape, right, or a political party who is lukewarm at best, wanting to integrate voices that are more diverse, all of these things, those voices, right, who show up cannot then fold, and some don't. There are like a few, maybe one or two folks who stand and don't fold, but often, more often than not, those folks, I'm thinking of, for example, Ilhan Omar, who took, I think, a very strong stance during the Palestinian genocide, which is still ongoing, but when that was very much forefront in the news, took a very strong stance around naming what was happening as genocide, as many of her peers stood quietly and also chastised her, right, in order to be in a space where they could remain electable by the American people, whilst many of their voter base who they depend on to win an election was starkly against the genocide that was going on in Palestine. So, because this group of people in power decided to fold on their values, I truly believe that that is why they lost the election. And so now we are where we are. People can all day sit here and say it's because folks didn't vote, but I believe one of the best things about this country is the fact that folks do vote from their sense of both ethical conscience and needs within their communities and within their families. I don't think there's anything wrong with voting from a space of self-interest. Now, what I do think is wrong is not leaving folks options by way of minimizing and consolidating your stance as a leader, not accurately reflecting what your populace has demanded, right? So before we sit here and blame people for voting with their, or not voting with their conscience, right? Because which way is truly ethical in a two-party system in which everybody thinks killing children overseas is okay? When we think about creating freedom, it's very important to understand that amount of discipline, right? Both moral and individually, day-to-day systems to create things are to pouring in to whatever the new is that you're creating, whether it be a system, a space, or a way of being for you, right? All of it takes intention, care, discipline, and discernment over and over again, not just for a day, but consistently, probably for the rest of your life, which is why we call freedom a practice, right? Freedom is something you practice. It's not something that anyone gives you. You create it by showing up day to day in ways that honor you, your values, your experiences, and where you want to go. Past, present, and future versions of all of those things, right? And so creating, I think, especially an understanding of where you're going, right, is the first step to creating one's own freedom. Otherwise, I think more plainly stated, it takes imagination, which is something that, at least in the US, has been skillfully and very intentionally removed within our day-to-day lives. Why? When you're working a 9-to-5 job, spend maybe, if you're lucky, under an hour, or max, if you're lucky, once again, an hour getting to your job, maybe 2, depending on where you live and what you do. Going home, you work till 5, 2 more hours to get home, 6, 7. Maybe you have some hours in the day after that. Or if you have kids, you don't got none of that shit. So what does that mean? Do you really have space to sit here and think about how you wish things were? Or is all you have space for to get through the next day? Imagination is not built into our current systems as they stand. So to be able to sit, to think, to envision something new, you have to be what we call a fight for your time. It means what it sounds like. You have to be able to prioritize those things that are important to you. You have to ensure that you protect that time, because things will try to take it. Things, people, places will try to take it. Reclaim that shit. That takes boundaries. That takes consistency. That takes disappointing people. You have to be okay disappointing people, right? So, back to the main point. To create freedom takes imagination. I think the book Freedom Dreams by Robin D.G. Kelley is a great text to get into that talks about how integral imagination is to creating freedom, right? In this book, he talks once again about, this fight for time and the space of how important imagination is in radical social movements. My first experience organizing was in Baltimore City, fighting on an M4BL affiliated campaign for defunding the police in Baltimore City. Now, what does defund the police mean? Does that mean we don't want a police? I mean, kind of, yeah, long term, yes. But when we say defund the police, right, before we even get to abolishing the police, we were talking about fighting for the reprioritization, right, of police funding from police forces into other social good areas such as child services, youth and family, teacher salaries, common sense shit, right? That people more often than not would, because of what we were saying or how we were saying it, right, defund the police, mark us as radical or just disruptive and unrealistic, right? And then those same people would take our talking points, reframe them, essentially do what we were saying to do, use it as their own campaign, use it within their own campaign structures, and proceed to complete that work. Now, am I happy? Were we happy the work got done? Yes. But what does that go to show you? It goes to show you that more often than not, those of us who take that responsibility of imagining what's next will frequently and often be called crazy until it works. So I think when I'm talking about creating freedom, There's also an element of it that's standing 10 on what you believe and why. Understanding that when we stand on our beliefs, when we stand on our values, we are then free to move how we need to move to get what we need done because we've taken the time to name values and boundaries that protect us, that make our direction clear. It's also very easy to be trapped in prisons of our own making. What do I mean by that? Creating freedom takes imagination. It is very easy to be trapped in prisons of our own making, especially after we have felt trapped or been trapped in our relationships with the world via oppression, family, via abuse or unhealthy social dynamics, right? This goes for community. I say trapped because being trapped within one's mind can come from, it can come from within you, and it could be internal or external, right? But regardless of how you get trapped, it's very easy once you are in a space where you think things have to be the way that they are to trap yourself again, to do it without anybody telling you to do it. When we think about this system of racial capitalism that we're in the United States, right? Racial capitalism meaning our capitalism is a special type of nasty because it was built on the back of chattel slavery, which means, right, us black people were assets that were utilized as would a cow, as would a pig, be breeded, right, for profit, to do labor, right? Enslavement being removed from the structure of our economy, then removed with it a source of income for millions of people, right? And I say removed kind of sarcastically because, as we know, or as you may not know, I don't know what your background is. But as we see in the 13th Amendment, definitely watch that documentary 13th by Ava DuVernay. It's a great look into how the 13th Amendment took enslavement and applied it to the prison industrial complex, right? Which is a for-profit system, mind you, regardless of whether it's owned by the state or privately. Inmate labor is used as free labor to generate things like license plates, things like shoes. I think Nikes, like parts of Nike shoes, are made within certain prisons, for-profit prisons. It's actually a very quiet, dirty thing that happens, but basically the police state is so heavily invested in because it is a means of obtaining free labor, right? Arresting people for charges that are petty at best, or not real at worst. Kidnapping people on the streets, ICE, putting them places where we don't know where they're going. Please believe that those folks are likely working for free or little income. So, that being said, the psychological violence that takes place within racial capitalism is this. When you see and are told that you deserve less over and over and over again, it adjusts your expectations to that less. If by generation you only move an inch farther than your parents, their grandparents, etc., when you see a white person next to you, right, who's able to go a lot farther, when you see someone with more money who's able to go farther, what does that then tell you in your psyche about what you deserve? I ain't ever had shit, so why would I get shit? Right, you stop expecting it. You stop asking for things that get your hopes up. And that's the cruelest thing that any of this takes away from us. It takes away the right you feel you have to dream. So to imagine is in and of itself a radical act. It is something that also frees you from those prisons of your own making or that were imposed upon you, which is why the Underground Rainbow Experiment puts so much stock into creation. We believe that artistic practice is a catalyst, that like a piece of dynamite is a spark that'll unlock other areas, light up other areas of your life and ways of thinking, to then create an explosion to where you have no choice but to move forward, to move into something else, to move into where you can have that imagination throughout your life. Now that kind of catalyst can happen through many different ways. Spiritual, there are literal technologies within many spiritual systems to get you there. But I think one of the most accessible means of this is through artistic practice, which, if we go back to the system of racial capitalism, what is the least invested program in our education system, in our public education systems? Arts. Why? Because they don't want you thinking. Your thoughts are dangerous. Your imagination beyond what you experience day to day is dangerous. It's something that needs to be protected and cherished, which is why to create freedom means to create discipline. Now, people don't like the word discipline. Some people prefer the word devotion. That actually was a great reframe for me. Devotion, right, to something. Let's look that shit up. Devotion. Devotion. Devotion is the act of dedicating time, energy, or loyalty to a person, cause, or religious faith. It signifies profound affection, religious fervor, or unwavering dedication to a duty or a purpose. In a religious context, it often refers to acts of prayer, worship, or a life set apart for service. As an organizer, how I was taught about devotion was through the lens of commitments. As an artist, how I was taught about devotion was the time you set aside to practice your instrument every day. It's the time you set aside to work towards your project every day. Even if you're not working, the mere thought of it every day. Love is built. Love is a feeling, but love is also built. Brick by brick, act by act, word by word, experience by experience. It is not something that magically comes. The feeling will come. But if you want that fucking feeling to stay, better hop the fuck too. I don't know no self-respecting person that I've been interested in who is okay with the bare fucking minimum. I know when I'm dating, I'm not. I know when I seek friendship, that's not it for me. And my standards light me up. What I see, what I think about what I want, I then have to be accountable to the fact that if I want those things, I have to move in the direction of those things, which means if I want better friendships, I need to make sure I figure out how I call people. I suck at calls. I'm infamous for being bad at reaching out to people. But if I want more reliable friendships, I need to make sure that I'm calling niggas at least once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, or we have some kind of rhythm that works for us, or some kind of way we know that we're present for each other. The things that we want are built step by step. So why would freedom work any other way? Why are we waiting for someone on high to come down and give us the right to stand in our power? No. To stand in your power takes discipline, takes devotion, takes looking the fear of being responsible and accountable to your results in the face. You have to look all of that in the face every day. And that's actually very scary for many people because we were conditioned to be fearful of that reality. A dream without a plan is useless. It will remain a dream. A plan without goals is aimless. And a goal without a date is a wish. Good luck. It'll happen when you plan for it to happen. It will happen, whatever that thing is that you're making, will happen when you decide it will. Pick the time in the day, baby. It will never be perfect. Creating freedom is an experimental process. It will mean failure. It will mean realignment. It will mean disappointment. It will mean telling people no. It will mean telling people that yesterday's price is not today's price. That I actually, for this leg of the journey, will need more from you. For this leg of the journey, that I will need more from me, right? It's every day. And I'll end with this. There is no roadmap. There is no manual. From the book of Jay-Z, album 12, Watch the Throne, book 1, No Church in the Wild, okay? Listen. In the words, I think Frank Ocean wrote the song. I don't know who wrote the hook. He sings it. Anyway, human beings in a mob. What's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? And what's a god to a non-believer who don't believe in anything? Will make it out alive. But there's no church in the wild. The bush don't tell you where to go, baby. Your machete do. You make your path. If you sit there staring at a piece of wilderness, waiting for it to clear for you, you will be standing there for a long fucking time. Good goddamn luck. If you are going somewhere that no one has gone, which to create freedom, you will inevitably go because there are so many spaces and people that are trapped in their own minds and ways of being who have not gone where you are going to go. You, person with the vision, are responsible for clearing that path. No one can tell you the right way to get to a vision that only you have. The best you can do is steal like an artist. This is why I believe artists are integral to freedom spaces, to movement spaces, to liberation spaces. Why? Because one thing artists, great artists specifically, I'm thinking like Basquiat, I'm thinking MJ, I'm thinking Prince, but specifically Basquiat. His process when he created pieces, right? He uses symbolism. And what he would do is he would go and he would look at these books of symbols or images that he saw, and he would take them, put them in his painting. He's not doing it exactly, but he would see it and he would take it and he would do it his way, right? And sometimes those symbols were drawn in a way that was verbatim, and sometimes they were drawn in a way that was of his spirit, how he saw it, because only he could see it in that way. He wasn't taking something new, but he was freaking it, and I freaked it. I took it, I remixed it. I took that lick and I applied it in a way that this person hadn't and can't apply it because they ain't you. They don't come with your experiences. They don't come. That's why when people get nervous about, oh, someone else has done this like me, they ain't gonna do it like you because you're you. No one can ever do, even if you're doing the exact same thing, technically, you'll never do it in the exact same way. So be brave enough to steal like an artist, which isn't really stealing, is really just remixing, which, mind you, Black people are very good at. So lean into that. When we're creating our own pathways, we have to understand that the best thing we can do is pull from examples and understandings that are around us to create something new. There's a type of art form in Japan called kintsugi. Kintsugi is this process of breaking a piece of pottery, or when it breaks, they would take the pieces and take gold and solder each piece back together, then creating something that is new, right? Creating probably a pot in the same shape, a completely different way. So it's then not what it was, but it's not what it was. It's a remix, right? So thinking about freedom in the same way, as what is breaking, what are certain pieces we can take, we can reimagine, we can reprocess, and put back together to create something new in a shape that can hold all of us. So to create freedom in and of itself is an art form. Just like creating a piece, just like creating I think collage is actually a great medium to think about this process in. Kintsugi, all of these aspects of quilting, right? Taking these old broken pieces and generating something new that only you can see. Pieces of fabric that only you have, to create a tapestry of freedom in your life and naturally the lives of others, right? Because that's how it works. We're all connected. Freeing yourself will naturally free other people, whether you try or not, because that's how it works. It's a form of healing. It's a form of reclaiming your own power within you and helping others do the same, right? Without even trying. Creating freedom takes everyone doing that process within themselves and then returning to community with what they learned so that we can go together and go very far. So this has been episode 3 of Retro Reflections. I'm Djérae, and this is the Underground Rainbow Experiment. Tune in next week for episode 4. Bye. Thank you for watching Retro Reflections, an ongoing video essay series by the Underground Rainbow Experiment. If you liked what you heard and what we're about, sign up for our email list or donate to our programming for Black, trans, and gender nonconforming artists at www.undergroundrainbowexperiment.org, or click the link below in the description. And remember, we create ourselves, we create our belonging, and we create our freedom.